Hello, everyone. Welcome to Clarity 15.9.2 Supportability Training. In this section, we'll review the investment updates for risks, issues, and changes, configurable task timeline, enhanced totals calculation, and a scrolling carousel, select investments to be removed from the system, and mixed bookings for the staffing workspace. So what's new? So like I said, we've got these 5 things we're going to be looking at. First, we'll start with risks, issues, and changes. They've been migrated from the project object to the investment object. So with this change, these modules are now available for projects and ideas and custom investments via their respective blueprints. In addition, a new risk score is also available as a calculated attribute, leveraging a new set of 11 contributing risk factors. There is a new and improved project and custom investment task timeline. Essentially, we brought in a new tool set, and so this is available now with the ability to configure additional attributes in the grid, such as percent complete, with the timeline in view. With respect to totals and this carousel, 2 new controls are available to view totals with a carousel to move through end periods at a time. So the 2 controls are sum of periods, which displays totals using, as it says, the sum of periods in view. Grand totals displays totals using the sum of periods, all based on the duration of an investment, or a cost plan, or a roadmap. The next piece is related to removing investments from the system. So with the proper delete rights in place, users can select multiple projects, ideas, or custom investments, which indicates they can be deleted from the system. Last but not least, the staffing workspace has been updated to support mixed bookings from a planning perspective. So why is this important? First, from the risk issue change perspective. In order to drive adoption, users require the same risk tools or same tools previously forwarded to projects only. What's important, or why is it important on the task timeline? Well, again, in order to drive adoption, users want that same powerful visual and configuration capabilities that they have throughout Clarity's modern UX. On the enhanced totals side, users now have an improved user experience when using grand totals, and allows them to focus on only the periods they need versus loading all periods for an investment that may have 4 or 5 years worth of data. The staffing workspace. So many customers have been waiting for mixed bookings in order to adopt the modern UX. Obviously, we had mixed booking support in staff, so the staff module, but now we're bringing it forward into the staff workspace. So with mixed booking in place, customers can implement an agile planning methodology whereby investment and resource managers collaborate and make allocation and staffing decisions within Clarity. And so from an investment perspective, resources are typically not booked to a multi-year project because management doesn't want to commit all those resources for the duration of an investment. So both the investment and resource manager are typically responsible for communicating their allocation for planned, a la soft, and committed or hard resources. One other point here related to the mixed booking is project managers input soft booked allocations for all resources required for a given project and its duration. Project managers are basically capturing the planned allocations. Line managers have a conversation with the PM to gain alignment and then convert planned or soft allocations to committed or hard allocations. So the conversation typically occurs on a quarterly cadence, which results in mixed bookings for a given investment. Okay, so what's changed? Starting with risk issues and changes, as I mentioned, risk issues and changes have been migrated from the project object to the investment object. With this change, these modules are configurable for either project's ideas and custom investments via their respective blueprint. With this change, a new risk score is available as a calculated attribute that leverages new contributing risk factors. There are 11 new contributing risk factors that are available for modern UX, projects, ideas, and custom investments. You can see here on the right the unselected value for a single contributing risk factor. This is the resource availability risk. And yet the risk score, like I said, is a calculated attribute using a weighted average, can still be determined. The old risk formula, it is a formula and requires all contributing risk factors in use to have a value so the system can derive that overall risk value. From the configurable task timeline perspective, we have introduced a new and improved timeline view. The new timeline delivers column configuration, which has been requested by many customers. For example, using the panel, the column panel, users can optionally add % complete or task owner as columns in the grid left of the timeline and save that configuration to a view. In addition to the column configuration, the timeline updates also include improved drag and drop in the grid for moving tasks up and down in the WBS hierarchy. There's also improved tools to manage dependencies in the timeline view. For example, a user can scroll down the page to link items that may not even be visual on the page. So some really cool stuff has been added. Key acceptance criteria for the new timeline tool set was that it had to support all the capabilities users have been used to. I'm not going to read the listing here, but the point is the new and improved timeline did not take away any existing capabilities. All grids capable of displaying per period metrics have new capabilities to view totals in conjunction with a new carousel to move through fiscal periods. From view option, the user has two choices to display totals: sum of periods, which displays the totals for the n number of periods in view. And the n number of periods is based on the project start and project end, or the entries that are put into the start period and end period fields in the view options pull down. Grand totals displays totals based on the duration of an investment, or even a roadmap or a cost plan, regardless of the number of periods in view. Once the users configured the grid to display start and end, to display a start and end period range, the carousel is used to move through investments using that range. So for example, this staffing plan is from January 21 to the end of Jan 2025, right? So, or 49 monthly periods. If I was to use the relative project start and project end in these fields here, the grid would display 49 monthly periods. However, I don't want to see the staff plan. I only want to see the staff plan in 6 months at a time. So in this case, I would choose project start, which it turns out is January 2021. I would use the relative date. And the end period selected would be June 21-06, as you see here on this example, or June. So with 6 months selected, I select grand totals to see the allocation totals for the entire project or its 49 periods, and use the carousel to navigate the investment 6 months at a time. So I don't need to put all 49 periods in view to get the totals. So we have a brand new way of doing things. In this view, it's kind of the same view here with 6 months in view. I select sum of periods. So I've changed it from grand totals to sum of periods. And I can see allocation totals now for that 6 months in view. I'm only looking at the totals based on my 6 months. And I use the carousel to navigate the investment in 6 month views. What's changed here on the removing things from the system perspective? So users with delete access rights can identify which projects, ideas, or custom investments can be deleted. Ideas and custom investments have a new delete all right, separate from the edit right. Projects already had a delete all right. So with the delete right granted, users have the added capability to select multiple projects, ideas, or custom investments to indicate that they can be deleted from the system. You would click the mark for deletion button, purge flag is set, and the selected investments were removed from the system after the delete investments and time reporting periods job is run. I would click the clear deletion button, a purge flag is removed, and the selected investments will not be removed from the system. Staffing workspace, so what's changed there? So with mixed bookings enabled, the staffing workspace supports the ability to manage both planned allocation and hard or committed allocations in both the resources to investment and the investment to resources view. Once allow mixed booking is configured through administration, the hard allocation column is available as a per period metric in a staffing workspace. Either soft or hard allocations can be represented in FTE, hours, or days as a planning unit. Days was introduced in the last release. Okay, so we're gonna move to the demo. So in this demo, we're gonna see 5 things. We're gonna talk about how the risk module, the new risk change models are available for ideas configured via Blueprint. We're gonna use the new risk score and its 11 contributing risk factors. We'll go in and look at the improved task timeline, and we'll use the enhanced total calculation and carousel under view options. And we're going to select investments to be removed from the system. And last but not least, we'll use the staffing workspace with mixed bookings. So let me switch to the demo and get out of the PowerPoint for 1 second. Okay, back here. So in this section, we're going to review the 5 new capabilities, starting with risk, issues, and changes. First, as mentioned, risk, issues, and changes have been migrated from the project object to the investment object. This means these modules are available for projects, ideas, and custom investments and are configured using their respective blueprints. Prior to this release, these modules were only available for projects. So I'm going to start in the investments workspace. I'm going to click the programs tile with my mouse. I'll grab the establish the EMEA private cloud item, and I'm going to land on the staff module, right? Normal workflow. You'll see here that the this investment is using a blueprint with risk, issues, and changes configured. I'll select the risks module, only to show you that the same functionality previously available, only available for projects, is now available to custom investments. I can click on the issues module. Again, the same functionality is available here for custom investments. I'll click on the ideas module and grab the AP architecture consolidation idea and land on the properties module. You can see that this blueprint is also using risk, issues, and changes as configured via the blueprint. Again, I'll select risks again to show the same functionality that was only available to projects is also available to ideas. So while we're talking about risk and the change to move risks, issues, and changes to the investment level, this change also introduced a new risk score. So I'm going to go back to the project grid and select my high risk view. And I'm going to expand my filter here to show that I'm using the risk score as a filter criterion. And this grid is only expected to bring back projects with risk score between 30 and 75. The attribute, as you can see, has field level security applied at the project level. I'm going to close this filter and highlight this first item here in the project view and open the details flyout. Now, in this example, I've got, so here we have in the flyout, I have configured it to include the risk score and 4 out of the 11 new risk factors. The risk score is a calculated attribute and doesn't require all configured risk factors to have a value to determine that risk score, unlike the now legacy risk formula attribute that does require all configured factors to have a value selected to determine that risk value. To prove a point, I'll just change the technical risk from high to none. And you can see the risk score is updated. It's updated. It can still be calculated. It changed from 67 or from 75 to 67 because it's using a weighted average to do a calculation. So that concludes the demonstration of the updates to risk, issues, and changes. Now I'm going to move on to demonstrate another update, investment update, which is the new and improved configurable task timeline. I'm going to stay here on the project grid, and I'm going to pick my favorite view and navigate into the where am I going here? I'm going to go into this module or this project, and you can see I landed on the tasks area with the timeline, the new timeline in view. The next investment is, I'm going to demonstrate this new improved project and customer investment task timeline. The key addition to the task timeline here is the ability to configure additional attributes such as percent complete and put it into the grid while with the timeline in view. As I mentioned, the new timeline also provides improved drag and drop capabilities for moving tasks up and down in the grid, and an improved UX to manage creating dependencies. In addition to the updated styling in the timeline, as you can see immediately, I wanted to draw your attention to the columns tab, which is here on the right. The details tab was already there in the prior release. So I can open the column panel, and I'm going to search for percent complete. There it is. And I'm going to search for actuals. Sure, if I could spell it right. Boy, not enough coffee. Actuals and work status, and bring those into the grid. I'm going to move the separator out of the way here so you can see that. There they are. I'm going to move percent complete to a better position. I can move that right over to here. I can adjust the column size, right? I can adjust that down if I can see it. And I can move the column panel, or sorry, the separator here so I get more view of the timeline itself. Another thing I want to point out is the inclusion on the left-hand side here of the WBS column. This is fixed. It's on the left. It's fixed to the left, and provides that quick visual reference of the task hierarchy position. The ability to insert or move tasks is easy as well. So from this initiation phase, I can just go here, right-click. I can insert a child. I can insert another child. I can insert another child. You know, I can keep going here. You can see the WBS structure is updating as I go. So it's really easy to add tasks. I'm going to go ahead and delete these guys just to kind of come back to a state of beginning. I can drag the requirements definition task up in position. So I can just grab this guy. I can highlight it and bring it up to be, you know, first in response. Oops, I moved it the wrong way. Just want to get it right there. There we go. We moved it to the top. That was easy. And then obviously the timeline itself received a styling update. As with the previous release, work status drove the color of the timeline bars themselves. I'll show you the legend here. I can open that legend up and see the key Percent complete drives the shading of the individual task timeline bars. And there's a subtle shading within the phase bar on percent complete as well. I'll close that. I can hover right here on the construction phase. I'll just select this guy. And you can see the phase itself has a kind of a border, but percent complete has almost like a second layer of coloring or shading that represents percent complete. The UX to set dependencies and adjust test start and end dates has been improved as well. So from in the timeline, I can click on requirements definition right here. I can click on that. So you can see we've got circles here to set dependencies and these vertical bar rectangles to set to move the task around. So I can grab this circle and just go down here and set a dependency. It's pretty straightforward. It's very easy, very intuitive user experience. I can just right click here to delete that. I'll select this requirements definition task here. You can see that it kind of the timeline shifts to bring it into focus, if you will, and it activates the borders of the task. If I go click another one from the timeline view, again the borders are activated. So if I go back to this guy requirements definition, I can grab the bar and you can see how the phase reacts to the change. I can go the same way here and it reacts to the change. I can grab it in the middle and move it along, and the phase and everything reacts to that change as well. Pretty intuitive, very easy to use. So each of these timeline capabilities that I just ran through provides that much improved user experience compared to the prior release. So that concludes the demo of the new and improved configurable task timeline. Let's move on to demonstrate the enhancement, improving how per period totals are displayed in the grid. So since we're already in the grid, since I'm already in this project, I'm going to go to the financials module. And I'm going to go into this plan of record, but first I wanted to point out that this is roughly a 4-year cost plan. Just note that. I'm going to go into this actual plan of record. I've selected a view that is showing basically from start to finish for the cost plan. You can see the carousel here inserts, there's 48 periods. I'm doing this just to show you as an example. And as I use my scroll bar, I'm going through 48 monthly periods. There's a lot of information available to the user. Now, a key driver for this feature was a need to improve usability for users working within cost plans, or any grid for that matter, that contains per period metrics that may contain 4 years of data. So the main reason why users find themselves working with the entire cost plan, in this case 4 years, is because they need that totals column with its 4 years worth of data sitting there to provide that information. So Clarity now has a solution that allows you to configure a more meaningful number of periods to view at a time and provide the totals column with its 4 years of data. So I'm going to go ahead and close that window and bring up another view that I've created that's basically got 12 months. So you can see the carousel chain updated itself from 12 periods to, from 48 periods to 12 periods. I can click from this position, I can click the next button and move through to the next 12 periods, right? So the second year of this cost plan, and my totals values aren't changing, right? I can go forward, a more fuzzy part of the plan, and my totals aren't changing. So I can go back to the beginning where I started. I can even go to the prior set of 12 months. Totals remain the same. Obviously, there's no content here since this cost plan started right here in February of 2021. I'm going to go into view options. So what you can see here, there's two new additions under this total columns. There's grand totals and sum of periods. So the sum of periods displays, just like it says, that the n number of periods in view, you get a totals based on those periods in view. So in this case, it would be 12. Grand totals displays totals regardless of the number of periods in view, but it shows it for the duration of, in this example, the cost plan, 48 periods, 4 years worth of data. This out of the way. Okay, so since we're in view options, I have my totals over here. This is using grand total, so it's got 12 periods in view, but it's showing totals for the 4-year cost plan. I'm going to select sum of periods, and you should see the totals column refresh and show 12 periods worth of information. So I can go forward here, and I'm still using 12 periods, but it's sum of periods as a selection. So it's going to now show the value for the next 12 periods only. I'm going to now kind of go into view options. I'm going to set grand totals, but I want to look at, oops, I want to go back to, where am I? Here I am. I'm going to look at just from the 2021, I think that was already there, 2021, sorry, let me find 2021, 2021-02, and I'm going to look at 6 months. I'm going to select 7. All right, so you can see here the system has, the carousel has refreshed, and it's got 6 periods, and I'm using grand totals, and it's using those same numbers we were looking at before. However, I'm just looking at it in 6-month window here. I'm going to go forward another 6 months, and I'm going to see my same totals, right? And if I change, I'll go back just to get to a starting point. I'll select sum of periods, and now I'm just showing data for 6 months, right? So I'm getting a reduced total count because I'm looking at 6 months only, and I've just navigated again to the next range. So all grids with the ability to display per period metrics include the carousel and the ability to view totals using either sum of periods or grand totals. So that concludes the demo of how per period totals are displayed in the grid. So let's move on to demonstrate an enhancement enabling users to identify investments that should be removed from the system. All right, so I'm back at my home page, and we're going to take a look at how users with the proper quote unquote delete access rights have the ability to select multiple investments, whether it be projects, ideas, or custom investments, and indicate that they can be deleted from the system. So I'm going to go into the investment area. I'm going to select business outcomes and use my default view. So I'm Ian. I'm going to start selecting a couple items here on the left. As you can see, I just have edit, the ability to edit. This is a feature that'll be covered a little bit later in the session this week. But the point here is that Ian, as a user, does not have the rights to delete or mark investments for deletion. So I'm going to log out and come back in as another user, Cheryl Amos. And I'm going to go into the investment area, business outcomes. And I'm back at my list, and I'm going to start selecting some items here. As you can see, there's some new controls that appear on the screen because Cheryl does in fact have the proper rights granted to perform this action, mark for deletion. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to confirm, and it tells me, hey, wait a minute, one or more of those things is active. You can't do that. I want to call your attention to the right-hand side here where the active flag is actually present. Having performed that mark for deletion function, the purge flag is set. This is a read-only field. And so that's my visual indicator that these have been marked for deletion and are just kind of waiting for that job to run. So I'm going to uncheck the active guy here, hit mark for deletion one more time, and now all three of these, as I wanted, are ready. They're in a state to be removed. There's my purge flag. I'm going to go ahead and just to keep my data here, I'm going to clear deletion and confirm that, and it's going to reset these guys to their original state. I just reset it to active, but the purge flag is removed, and that's how you kind of recover an investment that's been marked for deletion. Okay, let me log out and come back in as Ian. All right, so that concludes the demo of selecting investments for deletion. Let's move on to the demonstration of the staffing workspace and mixed bookings. So we are going to talk about now how the staffing workspace includes mixed bookings from a planning perspective. You see my staffing icon or staffing area with a new icon. I'm going into the staffing workspace. I'm going to select some pinned items and expand Adriana. Just want to refresh your memory in case you haven't been to the staffing workspace in a while. The column configuration is set at showing 4 months, 4 monthly columns, 2 quarterly columns, and 1 annual. This is all standard configuration that's done up through in settings. This grid is also set to use hours as the unit of measure. And you'll notice over here a hard allocation option is available to me. So that option is only displayed if the allow mixed booking setting is configured in classic administration. So I'll go ahead and select that. And now the grid includes that additional per period metric for hard allocation, right? It just positions it adjacent to the allocation column. You can see here that Adriana, for this particular investment, is in fact hard booked for 3 of these periods, February, March, and April. Hard allocations don't exist. The planned allocations are in there for the balance of this particular investment. You can see, so that's Adriana from resources to investments view. Let me switch to the investment to resources view and go to this particular investment. And you can see that all of the resources except Ian are in fact also have a hard allocation for the 3 months here, February, March, and April. And the planned allocations remain in view for the balance of this investment. So let's take a look at how the information here impacts the staff module. So I'm going to go over to projects and look for this investment, which is right here. And I land on the task module as one would expect, and I'll go to the staff module. You can see each of the resources again, except for Ian, have a hard allocation or a committed allocation for February, March, and April. You can see the mixed booking status is in play. for all of those other resources except for Ian. And you would expect that given what we just looked at over in the staffing workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and update Ian's allocations. He's not planned. He doesn't have any allocations in February. So I'm going to go ahead and update his allocations here for March and April. And not sure if you noticed, but his booking status changed to mixed. And that's been expected. So let's go over to the staffing workspace and just verify that that behavior is in fact transferred to the staffing workspace. I'm going to go to the investment resources area, open up my particular investment here, and I want to call your attention to the Ian Arpel row, and you can see the hard allocations are recorded and noted in this view. I could have updated it right here as well, but I wanted to show you that comparison between the staff module and the interplay of data entry on that side and how it impacts the staffing workspace. So that concludes the demonstration of mixed booking in the staffing workspace. And this concludes the demonstration of the investment updates for risk, issues, and changes, the new task timeline, enhanced per period scrolling and total options, and deleting investments.